Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for attending. We had a great turnout today. So we're going to go ahead and get started with some of our educational sessions, and then we'll be able to continue networking afterwards because I know there's a lot of great conversations going on right now. So welcome to the game at the Gwinnett Stripers and the IntegriCom Lunch and Learn. We're going to start off by hearing from Nick with the Gwinnett Stripers. So he's going to take us away, tell us a little bit about the team, some of the exciting events they have going on. And so I'm going to turn it over to him.
All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Of course.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're a little hot here. There we go. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing this morning? Everybody all right?
Doing great.
Good. My name is Nick Burnaby. I'm our assistant GM here at the ballpark. So I work for Diamond Baseball Holdings and the Gwinnett Stripers here, along with Joe Harrington, who's our general manager, and our spectacular staff. We've got Katie here today, along with a number of other folks that you'll see in these really bright green shirts, and you can't hardly miss us, man. It's tough to miss in the concourse. So my role here is to oversee the operations side of what we do, which does include the information technology end of our business. When it is really ironic because Calvin will tell you that I'm about as smart with all of that as the chair that's standing next to me here. That's about what I got. But thank God for our partners in IntegriCom and Calvin and Anya and Joel and everybody. We would not operate without them. It is easy to say that we would not be opening the place and operating the facility if we didn't have great partners like them. So, for us, we are the Braves AAA affiliate, which if you've ever been out here before, you might know we have Braves players on the field that are either working their way through the system. This is their last stop before they get to the Battery. And then some of them are actually on the 40-man, so they go back and forth. You might see guys like J.R. Ritchie, Jim Jarvis, all those guys that have been up on the big league team for part of this year and come back down. It's just a roster management thing. The Braves make those calls, and we are here to house them and provide a facility where they can continue to develop and get better. So on the other side of that, we are a community facility. The ballpark is owned by Gwinnett County. It's a Gwinnett County facility that we lease. So as that pertains to us, we are here to be stewards of it. We're here to be good community partners to everybody in and around Lawrenceville, the greater Gwinnett County area, and really the greater Atlanta area. So for us, minor league baseball is a little bit less about the actual baseball itself, a little bit more about just having something fun for everybody, whether you're a diehard Braves fan that wants to come watch JR and Luke and all these guys that are going to be the next names that you see regularly in the Battery, or you could give a hoot about baseball and you just want to come drink beer on Thursdays with us for $3. That's the goal. So, Thirsty Thursdays and Kids Club Sundays and giveaways and fireworks and all these different things that we try to do to make sure that folks, especially kids, are learning how to come out to the ballpark and love the game of baseball. So that's our primary goal here is to be stewards of the facility and work with partners like IntegriCom to get folks like yourself in as well, members of the community, members of the business community, to have this space that you can utilize at your leisure. So we've got a whole summer's worth of baseball coming up here with promotions like our Toy Story night, our racing night, more fireworks shows that our groundskeeper cares to talk about. But and then an off season's worth of activity as well in our Eggtoberfest with Big Green Egg. We'll have a few more announcements probably to come here on the Christmas season. We've got something kind of really big in the works, so keep an eye on what we're doing there. But yeah, that is really who we are in a nutshell, what we do. One of the other things I think today's lecture is about AI and integration. Minor league baseball historically is, I just will be blunt, it's one of the last adopters of technology. We're pretty late on a lot of things. However, when you're a AAA facility and a minor league baseball team, we have one of the larger staffs in our company, and there are other teams at the single A and double A level that have probably half the size of staff that we do, and we're still understaffed for our size, let alone those guys that are at those levels. So what you have to do is be efficient in what you do on a daily basis, because you're doing so many things all at once and probably doing them with less bodies than you should. You should probably have more, but so you got to find ways to be flexible and efficient in what you do. And AI integration is really opened that up for a lot of folks, specifically on the day-to-day applications, but also from the marketing standpoint. So we're using programs like Claude and ChatGPT, but we're also using, Wolf Cycle. We're using the marketing tools that integrate directly to, our social media platforms to figure out who's coming out to the ballpark. Who are we marketing to? So, without going too far in the weeds on it, that's really where we're at from a minor league baseball standpoint and AI integration. And I could talk everybody's ear off more about it, but I'll give the microphone back to Anya here and let you guys get back to it. But thank you again for coming out to join us today. We surely appreciate your time here and hope you have a great day at the ballpark, man. Have some fun. You're at the stadium, for God's sakes. So, thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that. But the Stripers always have some really cool events. I can confirm the fireworks show is insane. I don't think I've ever seen a better fireworks show than the one they put on Friday nights in the summer. So we are now going to turn it over to Amy Sulka. I've known Amy for several years. She does a lot of sales training. I didn't realize for so long there's quite an art to sales. It's not just showing up and give them a quote. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about how AI has changed even that sales process. So I'll turn it over to you. And I have a clicker for you.
Perfect. All right, so I've got 7 minutes and 10 slides, so we're going to move fast here. Do we hire a salesperson that knows technical stuff, or do we hire a technical person to do sales? We can argue that point all day because sales is part art, part science, right? Now, 10 years ago, salespeople were asking questions like, what keeps you up at night? Salespeople are still asking that question today, and if you're hearing that question today, I can tell you they are not leveraging technology to do research and understand what's going on in industries and markets. We have to elevate and get better at asking questions, and AI is going to help us to be able to do that. Now, AI amplifies your sales process, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So if we feed AI a good sales process, then it's going to make us more efficient. It's going to make us more consistent. A lot of people, you guys have all heard the term AI slop. If we don't give it a strategy, if we don't have a process, and we're just feeding stuff into AI, it's going to amplify that slop as well. And the risk is not just that it's noise, it is noise, and your brand is going to get lost in the noise. The bigger risk is that you're going to get canceled. People are going to block you. There's AI tools out there now that are looking for AI slop, and they're canceling you so that your stuff isn't even showing up in people's feed or in their email system. So we want to make sure that we are feeding AI good process and good strategy when we start. So I'm going to show you 3 use cases, good use cases and bad use cases of how people are leveraging AI as part of their sales process today. So the first one we're going to talk about is how are we doing research? How are we finding people to reach out to? The second is how are we opening those communications? The third is how are we showing up? And so there's some different AI tools that I'm going to introduce. Some of them you're probably already using. So maybe there's some application that you can learn to use better. Some of them you may not have heard of yet. So let's start with how we find the right people. Anybody here ever use Zoom Info as a tool? All right, so Zoom Info is a data service where you can buy data, and a lot of people go out there, they buy, I forget what they call them, but basically you get like a certain number of leads that you can get per month, and so they'll just download the leads, they'll put in a little bit of information about industry, company size, things like that, but they don't really have a targeted ICP or ideal client profile that they're using. They're just pulling these lists down and they're sending these mass generic emails out. And what we see is we're feeding all this data into our CRM, and so it looks like we're really busy. We've got a lot of information going in, but we really don't have any results coming out. All right, so a bad example of a use case is just generically pulling data out of Zoom Info that's not very targeted. What would make this more applicable is if we're using some of those tools. Has anybody ever heard of the websites tool inside of Zoom Info? What about the intent search? All right, so here's 2 ways that you can narrow down on your ICP. So one is websites, and I think you have to call their tech support to have that set up. But you can see on the back end who's been visiting your website. How long did they spend on each page? So you can see where did they click, how much time did they spend on each page. There's another tool that they have, and I think these are maybe upgraded services called intent. So you can buy a list of keywords that are relevant to your service or your industry, and when people are searching those keywords, they're now going to pull in, and you can see who are the hand raisers, who are people that are already looking for your product or solution or service. So then once we have those names, instead of us just generically spamming people, we can now be more targeted on who we're reaching out to and some of the research that we're doing. So some of the tools then that you would want to start to incorporate once you've got your list is now take those names or those companies, feed them into ChatGPT or Claude or tools like Evi AI, and start to ask it questions about what are some of the challenges that this company or this industry may be facing. Tell me about the person that would be making the decisions for this product or solution in my company. Go send it out to do some research on LinkedIn and see where they're posting or maybe writing blogs and things like that, and start to do some research on those people. And so that's going to help us create more targeted lists. So that leads us into how are we starting these conversations with messaging, outreach, and cold calling. So let me start by saying cold calling is not dead. People try and convince me of that every day. I hear it all the time. Cold calling doesn't work. Nobody answers the phone anymore. Who here's ever gotten a call from AI? How did you know it was AI?
Starts halfway through a sentence.
I mean, we can tell, right? Here's the problem with some of these tools. When sales reps try to hide behind the AI to do the hard work, the prospecting activity, the calls, no, it's not going to work. Because how many of you block those numbers? I know I do. This is how your companies are getting blocked and your messages are getting blocked. People still want to interact. They still want those human-to-human conversations. So what we need to do, instead of just taking these AI dialers, and you can take the AI dialers and train them. I've seen them trained with Sandler methodology. I still don't like it. What we want to do with those AI dialers is now take the information that we just researched using the tools from ZoomInfo and some of the research that we did on our ideal client profile and the specific people, and we want to use those AI dialers to now tell it to, instead of just creating the list and sending out the automated messages, still create the list, populate the numbers with the people who were in our intent search, with the people who commented on our LinkedIn post this week, to the people that have been visiting our website and responding to our emails, because those are the warmer leads. And so we can still use the tool, but if we're just using the tool to hide behind it and have it do the calls and the conversations, it's going to become noise, all right? So we still want to leverage that, but we want to leverage it so that we're still having the conversations. All right, the third one is how are we showing up? Now there's some other good tools on the marketplace now where you can use AI with video. And there's a lot of good use cases for AI with video. So HeyGen is one of those, and I actually have done some side-by-side photos of myself with real photos and AI and showed my husband, and he could not tell the one that was real from the one that was AI. So there are some really good tools out there, even with video, that look and sound like you. But in this initial outreach, we are attempting to create trust. And people still don't trust AI a lot of times, particularly in the sales process. And some good use cases of using those AI-generated videos. I think if you've got product demos or some mid-process stuff, but in that initial conversation, I think Vidyard is another one. You can do live video outreach, so it's kind of like leaving a voicemail, but it's on video, or you can record an AI image of yourself. So where the bad use case is when we record a video of ourselves using AI and then we send that same video out generically. But But if we use some of those tools, like Vidyard, to do an outreach where now it's us live, it's customized for the person. We can see the analytics on the back end. We can see if they watched it. We can see how much of it they watched. But again, I just want to caution to be careful about just using that same generic video over and over and over. So the reps that are winning with AI right now aren't the ones who are using it the most. They're ones that are using it the most strategically. So AI is not going to replace salespeople as an industry, but salespeople who learn to use AI are going to replace salespeople who don't. Now, we have a newsletter that comes out quarterly called Sandler Advisor. If you click this QR code, there is a very interesting article right here included on page 44 that's called Use This AI Prompt to Build a Winning Business Case. So if you're interested, that's a free download from my website. And if you want to follow up with me later, my name is Amy Salka. I am with Sandler Training. I work with business owners and sales teams who want to improve their sales performance. Here's how you get in touch with me.
Thank you, Amy. That was great. So next up we have Greg. I have known Greg and Kelsey for the past, I guess, year, and I've kind of had a front row seat to some of the very cool things they've been doing within their business around AI and automation. So I asked Greg if he would mind coming up and sharing what they've done. So he's going to talk a little bit about it.
Well, good morning. Tell me honestly, how many people in here are tired of hearing the word AI? Raise your hand. Sorry. Do I do this? If you are, I know the feeling. Something happened to us recently. We were on a trip, an international trip, and we actually got kidnapped. And the kids wouldn't pay the ransom, so the kidnappers came to me one day and they said, Greg and Marla, this is your last day on earth. I have good news and I have bad news for you. You're dying today, but we'll give you one wish before we kill you. And he said, okay, Greg, what's your wish? And I said, I really love AI. I want to talk about AI for the next 20 minutes. And he said, well, that's reasonable. I'll let you do that. And then he asked my wife, what's your last wish? And my wife said, my wish is that you'll kill me before he starts talking. So AI is really, it's a really hot topic, and I can understand why people are tired of it, but it's really exciting for me. I started in e-commerce 27 years ago. I was lucky. Back when I started in e-commerce, a monkey could make money on the internet. And that's absolutely true. It was very, very easy back then. It's harder now by far. And about a year ago, we decided that we needed to get into, basically get caught up with the rest of the world. And we started investing heavily in AI and rebuilt our system. So my business is very typical. It's complex, just like every business in here. And that we have, in our case, we have multiple warehouses across the country. We ship product. We have websites that feed orders into a system. We're doing customer service. We're doing advertising. We're doing marketing campaigns and so on. A lot going on. And we had a bunch of SaaS solutions that were sort of bundled together. It's like a big ball of Band-Aids. And I was sort of the glue because I was a software engineer before I started this business. And I was hacking together solutions to sort of connect those things together. And so a year ago, we started building, actually about 6 months ago, we got into it in earnest. We started building an ERP, which for those of you that know, ERP is like the brains of a business. For us, it's our inventory, accounting, purchasing, all our CRM stuff, advertising, marketing. Basically, everything is put together in one system. And we built it with AI. And the reason we built it is because there's two reasons. First of all, in business, the edge case is where you spend your time. The edge case for us means not the normal shipments where we're shipping out to customers. 95% of the time everything goes right, but 5% of the time things go wrong. And then you have to invest time, and that's where most of your time goes, is fixing those kind of issues. And so we were not handling those well with our system, and we needed something better. So we invested in another system. The other thing, though, that we invested in was a topic that we call data surfacing, which basically means in a typical business, we have data that's buried in the business that we don't know is there, right? We need it, but it's too hard to get to it. Here's an example. I have a question for you guys. How many of you know how much money you made yesterday? There's a few people that know. I went 20 years in business without ever knowing how much money I made yesterday. It's sort of hard, right? The data is buried, but it's hard to get to. And so one of the things we did when we started building ERP is thinking about how do we get data to the surface. And this is one of the things I built in AI. This took only a few minutes, but I want to sort of use this as the baseline to tell you where you can go if you're interested in starting down this journey of building with AI. So this is what we call a dashboard. This is a place I can go every day and immediately see how much money I made yesterday. So this is a system. Now in the past we would have done this with spreadsheets and a lot of work. Now it's all coming together. This page, for example, will go out to Google Ads, because we're advertising there. There's certain variable places where we spend a lot of money. It'll go out and find those places, bring in the numbers, and build this for me where the first thing I can do every day is see if I'm doing well or doing poorly and know whether I can play golf that day or I need to work. And so this is a little thing that sort of is not a big thing to build, but it's something that adds real value to my business. Then we can drill in from there. So I'm going to talk about how to build these tools, get you guys thinking about building these tools for just a few minutes today, sort of whet your appetite. This is a topic that, again, a lot of what we've built is not really relevant perhaps for a lot of people in the room, but just little tools with AI can make a big difference. And I'm going to sort of walk you through that process, which I understand for a lot of people is intimidating, so I'm going to make it as unintimidating as possible. I'm going to go through 7 principles. 7 principles. It's always got to be 7, right? Principle number 1, the best way to learn AI is to ask AI. By the way, is this my right set of slides? May not be. Okay. When I say AI, by the way, guys, I mean, for me, it means Claude. So if you see the word Claude, I use Claude mostly for building. If you use Codex or Gemini, doesn't matter. I tend to use Claude. So if I say Claude, AI, those are sort of synonymous with me. The best way to learn AI is to ask AI. Now, this is counterintuitive, because if we buy a car, we don't learn about the car by asking the car, right? We tend to go to outside sources to learn. AI is one of those unique places where the best place to learn is actually to ask it itself. Don't go to YouTube, don't buy a class, and for God's sake, don't go to college to learn AI. If you want to learn how to build with AI, open up Claude.ai and say, "Hi, my name is Tom. I know nothing about building anything with AI. Here's my business. I have a business that sells widgets. I don't know how much money I'm making. Teach me how to build a tool to do that." And then watch the magic happen. It's amazing what AI will do. It'll lay it out for you. It'll walk you through it step by step. You might say, "Greg, I can't do that. I have to connect to my bank account." Claude will walk you through how to connect to your bank account. Or you need to connect to Google, or you need to do, it doesn't matter. Claude will walk you through it, even if you're not technical, step by step. Principle number 2, communication is everything. So in software, you've probably heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out, right? Same thing is true with AI. You're going to get good results from AI based on what you send in. And then we call that prompting, obviously. One thing to know about Claude in particular, Claude is Dwight Schrute. This is the employee in your organization that knows everything. He talks dogmatically even though when he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's going to say things dogmatically even though he's just guessing. You need to know that going in, and we adjust for that. One of the ways we adjust for that is with guide rails. I put here Claude MD. There's equivalent based on whatever tool you use. But basically, you tell Claude how you want it to talk to you. One of the first things you put in there is, if you're guessing, tell me you're guessing. Don't present facts as facts unless you know they're facts, if you're just guessing. Don't curse. Excuse me, I'm getting over the flu. Don't curse. Claude will, a lot of people say, can I curse at Claude? Yeah, Claude was not going to kick you. Claude will not kick you out. But what it will do is it'll slow down. So be nice, be pleasant with Claude when you talk to it. Use complete sentences. Speak with examples. Speak with metaphors. Talk to Claude like it talks to you, and you'll get generally good results. Principle number 3, use your voice. And what do I mean by that? I mean use your voice. One of the biggest roadblocks or actual bottlenecks when you're building today is actually how fast you type. You don't have to type anymore. Whisper.net is an AI tool. It costs $100 a year. You can start for free, and you just press a key on your, hold down a key on your keypad and talk, and it does a beautiful job. It corrects your speech, pulls out all the uhs and ums, fixes any mistakes you make, and does a beautiful job. If you're not a good typist, move to a tool like this. By the way, this is true whether you're building with Claude or just typing emails. Number 4, build in a serious way. So if you're going to build tools for your company, do it with a long-term focus. There are certain principles that are important. I put 3 of them on the screen. If you don't know what these things mean, Claude will explain them to you. It'll walk them through you side by side or step by step. All you really have to do is take a picture of this screen, plug it into Claude and say, I saw this in a presentation, explain these things to me, and Claude will help you do these things. But IDE essentially is your workbench, how you actually organize your code. Code control basically means a system to snapshot your code, because writing tools, building with Claude is an iterative process. And so as you go along, you're going to be changing things. You might add a column to a report or remove a column. What code control does is it snapshots so that you can back up if things go wrong. And then deployment is just about where your code lives. Principle number 5, vibe coding is a trap. So you may wonder, vibe coding is a term I sort of hate. Vibe coding essentially is, you hear that term a lot. When people say vibe coding, what they're referring to is the idea that you can sort of outsource all technical aspects of your code to AI. Doesn't really work that way. As of this moment, it may change by the time this meeting is over, but as of this moment, AI is not intelligent enough to handle all the technical aspects of your code. In this example, if you're building something simple, yes, Claude can handle it. But if you're going to build something complex, you probably still need an adult in the room to manage your development. Number 6, building with AI isn't free. So you might have seen recently that Microsoft stopped paying for tokens. I don't know if you noticed that. AI is not necessarily free. There's a couple of costs. First of all, there's the cost of AI itself. In my case, in our company, we pay $600 a month for 4 monthly plans, $200, $100, and $100. I have friends that pay a lot more than that in tokens. There's cost associated with AI itself. There's the time cost. So in the past 6 months, we have put out we've generated roughly 800,000 lines of code. 5 years ago, 800,000 lines of code would be 80 person years. So a team of 40 people, 2 years, essentially. And we did it in 6 months with 2 people. If you do the math, that's roughly 80 times faster. However, that wasn't free. It's still a significant cost. You have to add up the cost. And then the big thing is opportunity cost. I have all these friends that own businesses, and you guys may know them too, that have sort of put their business on autopilot because they're building some app to save $8 a month. They're spending 40 hours a week building apps to save $8 or $10 a month on a SaaS subscription. Be careful about that. That's a big trap when you're working in Claude or building things for your business. Very, very often the time investment is just not worth it because you could be investing in things that make more money for your business. And then last, stay sane or be a human. This is a real big problem, I think, today with Claude Code, because especially for us that own businesses, and I know that most people in here do, if you own a business, you have a certain personality to start with. Building with Claude is like crack cocaine for business owners. It's highly, highly addictive because you're building big things that make a real difference. And if you get into it, you'll see what I mean. It can become very addictive very fast. I sort of say it's sort of like playing Minecraft with real money. I guess you can play Minecraft with real money. But highly addictive, be careful. I think we entrepreneurs really have to struggle with that. We have to watch ourselves. I put 3 quick tips here. First of all, ship it. Building in Claude has no economic value in itself, right? The economic value only comes when you use what you build. So make sure you're using what you build. Number 2, set limits. Turn off your computer at the end of the day. Speaking to myself. And then number 3, don't make an AI widow. This is a real term that I just saw in the Wall Street Journal last week. Women complaining their husbands are disconnected because they're plugged into a screen. I was at lunch recently with a guy, and he's insanely productive. But he sat on his phone the whole lunch because he was programming from his phone. Be careful about that. Building great things, but in the end of the day, we have to stay human. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Up next, we have Jeff from SEO Gurus. We've been working with Jeff and his team for about, is it a year and a half now, I think? Yeah, they've been working on our SEO rankings, a lot of back-end work on our website, and I will tell you, it works. It's impressive what they do. It's impressive to see how the landscape has changed, and it's really cool. So I'm very excited for you guys to hear from him today.
Thank you very much. I just press the button. Other button. There we go. All right. Yeah, my name is Jeff Tormey. Thank you for being here today. And I want to talk about the biggest shift in marketing, online marketing, since Google. That was in 1998. So that is actually an AI-generated image of me. So it's called Headshot Pro. If you want headshots, you can get an AI-generated ones just by uploading a bunch of selfies. But I've got an engineering background, so I was very process-driven and really results-oriented. So I started this company in 2012, and we really focus on measurable growth, not just traffic to a website. And so I want to talk to you about something that's kind of a blind spot for a lot of companies. So for a long time, we've only had to go to Google. Everybody just was going to be on Google. But now a customer asks, who's the best roofing company near me? There's going to be competitor A, competitor B, competitor C. And if you're not showing up in those AI search results, you're never going to be a part of the conversation. So back in the day, for 20 plus years, up until about 2 years ago, it was just Google. If you could get ranked in Google, you got clicks, you got leads, life was good. And it's changed pretty dramatically. So right now, Google has they used to have about 95% market share. Now they have about 80% market share. That might even be a little bit smaller. OpenAI claims they have about 10% of the market share, which is really amazing. So search has changed so much with ChatGPT, Google AI Overviews, Gemini, Perplexity. We've heard others mentioned this morning. And so there's a couple of things I want to mention. There's visibility. That's when somebody finds you online, but they may be searching for your type of service. And then there's discoverability. So they don't even know who you are. They're asking a question. And that's how people are using the AI search results. So who has used any of the AI to search for a product or service? Right? Almost everybody. So the question is not so much now, do I rank on Google, although that's still extremely important. but it's, does AI know my business exists? And if it doesn't understand, recognize, and trust your business, you'll never get recommended by the AI. So I want to make sure everybody knows how to get recommended by the AI. So the decision happens before Google. So let's say somebody says, who's the best roofing company near me? So it used to be you would type in like, roofer Gwinnett or something like that. So a lot of people are changing the way they're searching. So now you're asking who's the best roofing company near me, and Google's gonna, or the AI is gonna give you a few different results. You should consider competitor A, B, C, and if you're not one of those three, you're not getting recommended by the AI. So if you're not mentioned, the opportunity is gonna go elsewhere. So why do most businesses not show up? This is extremely important. So there's a thing that Google calls EEAT. So this is experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. This is like the holy grail of showing up in the AI. And I'll just give you an example. We have a client called Schmidt Waterproofing. We built their website, and when we started with them, AI never knew that Schmidt Waterproofing existed. But I just have a screenshot there. You may not be able to see it, of the Google AI overview. And when you type in basement waterproofing Cumming, Georgia, they show up as recommended. I talked to them just this week, and they said, yeah, we get quite a few customers off of ChatGPT because we're getting recommended now by ChatGPT. So that's really where you want to be. And so how do you do that? Okay, so there's some technical signals that are really, really important. Yeah, if you want to take a picture of this, this is a great slide. So for technical signals, there's LLMS.txt. If you know something about websites, you might have heard of a robots.txt file. It kind of tells Google how to crawl and index your website. The LLMS.txt file is formatted in a way specifically for the AI engines to basically index your website. There's schema markups, been around for a long time. Entity optimization, so the AI can understand your business. And then site structure is very important. This is going to be your website structure. Then authority signals are going to be things like brand mentions, citation building, reviews, and digital PR. Reviews are still extremely important. So the AI will still show on the results how many Google reviews you have and what your star rating is. So it's still very important to get Google reviews. And then as far as the content signals, there's going to be expert content. So this is going to be very important to write great content on your website. It's okay if you use some AI to help you write the content. Google and the AI is not going to necessarily punish you for having AI generated content on your website, as long as it's good content, that it's relevant, and it demonstrates your expertise to the field. So it's okay. You still can use AI generated content. The FAQ content is going to be very important. So we write FAQ questions in a way to try to influence the AI output. So what you want to do is just think about how you would ask a question in ChatGPT or whatever AI you want to use, and then think about what that answer would look like, and we try to provide that answer. So we make it real easy for the AI to just show that answer that we've already provided it because it trusts the website. So that's a great way to influence the output. Having your service pages fully built out is really helpful. And then topical authority. How many people have written a blog post for their business in the last 30 days? Okay, like 3, 4, 5 people. So it's very difficult to stay on top of that stuff, right? So having topical authority is really important. So this is gonna also be used for internal linking on your website to link to the pages that you really want to show up for. Okay, and then visibility is the result. With ChatGPT, Google AI Overviews, Gemini, Perplexity. Yeah, this is just sort of a reiteration of that slide. And then the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was using AI. If you show up in the search results, that's great, but then what? you got to kind of take the next step. One of the previous presentations talked a lot about finding out who the visitors to your website were and basically scraping their data and being able to send them information. You could do that with a CRM. So if somebody fills out a form, calls your business, sends you a text, it should go into some kind of a CRM. Can't tell you how many clients we have where it just goes to their email, which is fine. A lot of times that works just fine. But if you're getting more lead volume, you might want to have something that's kind of next level so you can have a better journey for your customer. So speed is everything. So if you follow up quickly, so the numbers are brutal. I think your percentage of closing the sale drops by 400% if you don't reach the lead within 5 minutes. So it's a terrible fall off. So if you're following up hours later or days later, or sometimes never, your competitor might have followed up with them and gotten the deal. So you can have an instant text response, you can do lead nurturing, you can put people in a pipeline for tracking, automated email follow-up. One of the things that I have used in my business now for a very long time is appointment scheduling and reminders, all with AI. So if you're somebody who wants to set appointments, maybe to talk on the phone for a consult, or if you can schedule people with a scheduling calendar so they can go out and give somebody a quote, having it automated using AI is really next level. My business wouldn't be where it is without having AI scheduling, and I probably started that in about 2018. So it was actually a really long time ago. So you really want to have the entire system. So visibility, lead generation, lead capture, have your CRM with some AI follow-up that leads to appointments and increased revenue. Let's see. So the businesses, I think, that really embrace AI, I think maybe AI has been said, I don't know how many times this morning, maybe everybody's getting tired of AI already. But people who adapt and embrace AI and build it into their business now are really going to be successful in 3 to 5 years. The window's still wide open. It's still an open field, but the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be, and you're going to become invisible to AI, and you're just not going to be part of the conversation. Phone calls are going to drop off, business is going to start to dry up, and you'll have to just rely on other means like Google Ads or something like that, which still work. There's, like I said, most of the traffic right now is still on Google, but it's changing very rapidly. Let's see. Yeah, so that's what we do. We work on visibility, conversion, and follow-up to increase our clients' revenue. And that is all I've got for you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jeff. So next up we have Calvin from IntegriCom. So obviously he is with me. We work at the same company. So he's going to go into a little bit about AI automation kind of in the AIT space, even different things we've been doing. So he's got some cool things for us. I'll turn it over to him.
Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate everybody coming out. We know that you guys are very busy people. Your time is very valuable, and so we appreciate you guys coming out. I appreciate the great content we've already seen so far. If anybody want to leave us a Google review for this event, we would not say no. So at IntegriCom, I run a lot of the stuff around the technology we choose to go for, the technology we implement internally, and the technology we implement for clients. So I'm meeting with leadership teams, talking to them about their technology, talking about where their data lives and what they're doing. So this provides me a lot of insight into both things they've done that's been a huge success and things they've done they wish they never did. So a lot of what I want to talk about today is really talking about workflows in businesses. So regardless of industry, you have a workflow. You probably have lots of workflows. And so how do you automate that workflow regardless of the AI you use? And so the first thing to start with is why you're doing it, right? If there's not a good why, you're not going to get any approval for any of this stuff to happen from your leadership or also from your team. right? Like you got to convince everybody that this is a good idea and something worthwhile investing into. And so the things we like to focus on in organizations is the stuff that no one likes to do or wants to do, right? Like if you can tell somebody that that thing you hate doing for 20% of your day, I can make sure you never have to do it again, it's a lot easier to sell it to a team. And so that's kind of what we try to focus on, because a lot of times in our days we're focusing on very important things, but then we're tied up with all these distractions or these things we have to go chase down that we're like, oh, this is really easy. It's just no one really does it but me, or I only have that oversight into all these teams since they're working all together. So we try to focus on those things and what both we do for clients and help them with, but also internally. And so the other thing I like to say is does anybody feel like everyone's ahead of them in AI? Like, everyone's talking about this. There's people like me standing up in front talking about a PowerPoint, like, oh, he must know. And it's a little misleading, because I think that there is a lot of people who know the technology side. Maybe they've used all the AIs, they understand the differences. But you guys have something that is extremely valuable that I cannot emphasize enough that other people don't. And that's what good looks like in your industry. You know what the final product needs to look like. And there might be someone who knows Claude out the wazoo, and they're building a competitor to you, but they don't actually have the experience you have. They haven't had the conversations with clients that you've had. They don't actually know what good looks like. So they can get something very fast out, but it may not actually be what the client wants. And so knowing what good look like is extremely important, and I would say a lot more important than the technology you use, the AI tool you choose, all those factors. And so you know what the real scope is. You know when they ask question A, they're really asking question C, B, and so on, right? You know the other things you have to remind them about. They're not just give them exactly what they're looking for, give them what they are going to want, after they get that. And the other thing is you know what thorough looks like. If you've used AI for long enough and you ask it a question, you'll notice it misses things that you're looking for, and you have to keep on prompting it for that information. But the fact that you know what you're missing is actually very invaluable. And so that's kind of important to remember. And so I kind of say that to not make sure you guys are not feeling behind, because if you know what good look like, you know what good product is, a good service is, thoroughness, then you have an advantage. And that's kind of the experience that's good. Speed is the obvious win with AI. So we talk about sales, talk about how fast we need to respond to a lead from the website. That's the obvious part, and that is extremely valuable. I don't want to underplay that. But the other thing is AI lets you win and lets expertise show up at a depth you could never sustain by hand. And so there's a lot of examples of this, and even in our organization, of maybe we can help a client with their IT request, but maybe we know there's 4 or 5 things we probably want to talk to them about as well. And AI enables us to do a much more thorough job, because we might have saved a couple hours, so we can spend those hours in a different way to go after the little things that kind of fall through the cracks because we're all so busy. So if we can offload that boring, maybe time-intensive stuff, you get to chase after all the things you think about when you go to bed, like, oh, I should have done that, or I should have thought about this. We should do this, but I have no time to do that thing. And that's kind of the win that I think is hidden in a lot of organizations. Everybody has some steps. I have 5. And so we talk about what to automate. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to find it. And so you got to consider, what are we going to automate? What are we looking for? We got to map it. You really need to know the process of what you're trying to solve. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a vendor sell an AI product that I really don't know what it does. I call it AI fluff. It's like one of my favorite words is like, you hear something and everybody makes a million promises, but then like when you actually go to implement, measurables aren't changing. Like money isn't coming in from this, or time isn't actually being saved. You just have a lot of people playing with a new tool. Other thing is to simplify it, build it small, and measure it. I'll go into more of these in detail. So the first thing is find it. There's a lot of ways you can find opportunities in your organization. A couple of ways that I like is twofold. One is if you have an AI tool, how many people already have AI agent or AI tool that they're working with right now? So most of you guys in the room. So you could start a chat and you could say, hey, ping me every 15 minutes and ask me what I did. And so then you answer it. It's really annoying. right? Every 15 minutes you get in a chat, you're going to miss a few of them. But by the end of the day, you might have just roughly told it what you're doing. It create an Excel sheet and give you a whole time study. What did you spend your time doing that? You do that for a week, it really does give you an insight that you don't think about in a different way. And so if it starts, and you can ask AI, well, out of what I did in the last week, what are things you might suggest to automate? What's the easiest win? What's the biggest time saver? And so that's one way of doing it. The other thing is if you have timesheets from your employees, now there's a whole security and compliance aspect of this that you can talk to me after this. Today I'm going to talk about the positives. But if you have timesheets and you have time entries of what your staff is doing, you could dump it into AI and say, hey, where's the opportunity, right? You can also talk to your team, funny enough. But at the same time, that you can generate a lot of information just by the data you already have in your company in timesheets, notes, etc. The other thing is map it. If you have a process that you do, a workflow from start to finish fully mapped out, amazing. You're already way ahead. If you don't, that's okay. The reason I said earlier, you know what good looks like, you can paint a target for what AI needs to hit. You don't always need to know every single step. If you have a workflow, I recommend roughly mapping it out in what you do. Think about the exceptions. What's the 5%? What's that one client is an exception, right? They've been with us for 20 years. And so mapping these things out is really, really important. And then don't automate a mess, right? I can't say how many times companies look to implement AI, and you really should never look to implement AI. You should look to solve a problem and deliver a measurable, just like you would any other product or project in your company. Don't abandon that. I see a lot of time, especially, probably even more than money, waste, and we've heard about that already today. The other thing is you may not do it in the way you currently do it. So for example, if you have a process and you click here and you drag this here and you do that here, AI may not do it in the same way. So an example of what we saw was we would have a tech go do a certain process, and he'd go here, go to this website, get this data, yada, yada, and then we'd have this whole beautiful workflow, this process from step 1 to step 35. But then we realized, what if we just create an agent that connects to all those data sources, and the tech just asks what he eventually needs, and it gathers it all for him. So you don't exactly have to follow the same workflow you have now, but have an understanding of where and how you do it is going to get you in a good starting place. And having the target of what good looks like is the most important thing. And so there's a lot of things that we have done in our company, and I wanted to share a little bit. Happy to talk more about the technical details. I don't want to bore you guys to death. But one thing is every business usually has some sort of role that can be heavily augmented. And so for us, triaging is that. And so when a ticket comes in, a coordinator has to look at it and they have to assess priority. They have to assess what the work is, who team needs to go to. And almost every company has some sort of role like this: dispatcher, coordinator, whether it be an office admin, operations admin, those kind of things. And so what would take us 3 to 4 minutes, which does sound fast, and it is, it's kind of well above industry average, we now do in seconds. Now, is it perfect? No. Sometimes we get a request and it says, I need help. It's hard to triage that. It's hard to know the priority of it, what we're talking about. But if a client spends the time to say, hey, I need all this information, well, we can immediately escalate it, immediately get to the right person, instantly, very, very quickly. And so what we're seeing is that we have every new ticket that comes in, AI will go over it based on our already process we built. We have a 30-page process of coordination and how we triage things and all the little factors and little point systems that change things. Is this a VIP? Is this something they've already have a ticket open for? Let's bump that priority up a little bit. And so we're able to triage things at extremely fast rate. Not only can we triage things, but we can reorder the importance. So if you think of 100 requests that we have, if a new request comes in that is number 1 priority, it can immediately reshuffle every single request in the whole company so that it gets to the right person the fastest, instead of having to have someone manually go reorder it. A lot of this stuff we're still implementing and still improving, but the triaging in general has been something that has saved us hours and hours and hours of work. And so that's kind of an example of how that happens. So the AI reads it, it merges duplicates, it confirms the customer, it will label the issue, set the urgency, route to the right team, estimate how long it should take. So we can give an estimate of this should take 1.5 hours. Let's go ahead and schedule that tech 1.5 hours instead of just giving them 30 minutes to do the work. And so we're doing a lot more detailed work here. The other thing that's really, really cool is if you submitted a ticket about something a year ago, we can now reference it instantly. So the tech gets a ticket and it goes, oh, I already saw this a year ago. Just go back to the old ticket, look at it, see what happened, moved in. It can also reference documentation. So if we make our good notes, we can take the notes of how we solved that, put that in our documentation center, and then we can reference that doc. So a tech gets a request and has, this happened a year ago, here's the doc we already built to fix it, and you're getting a much faster response. You're not having to wait for someone to go search through all the stuff. So we're able to do some pretty incredible things, and what this really means is our response times are faster, ticket closures are faster, average time per ticket's faster. Like, these are measurable things that we're changing and measurable things that are improving. Another thing I wanted to give is most organizations need something like this in whatever you build. And so I'll give you an example of ours, but this is really industry agnostic. Most everybody has extremely valuable data in your company. And that might live in SharePoint, it might live in Microsoft 365. Generally, your email is going to be one of those places. It's also going to be your ERP, whatever you use, your CRM. And so getting these data to talk to each other is extremely, extremely valuable, because almost every tool you might build is going to need that information from those different tools. And so something that we do is we have documentation, of course, on every single one of our clients, and extremely detailed about their entire environment, but also detailed in the sense of when we had an IT review, when we talked to the CEO about a certain problem they have, we have that information together. And so this agent wouldn't access all of that data. You still have to have security, still have to have the right people who can access the right information, but it can access some of that data depending on the role. So what we have is in Microsoft Teams, we have a little agent. It's called IT Troubleshooter. We also have other agents that's just called information. And what it does is you can start talking to it, and it can reference every single ticket, every single document we've ever built. So when the tech is, let's say we get a ticket comes in, says, hey, my email signature is broken, they couldn't find a document for it, but as the tech's talking to the client, getting more information, he starts talking with natural language to our information sources, and they're giving them responses. Like, oh, I probably just this. Oh, we did see this before. Now you have a little more information. We have seen that request before. And so whether you're talking to your sales data, you're talking to your client information, you're talking to whatever it may be, most automations are going to need to talk to those systems. And so for us, we have an Azure environment. We have Azure Blobs spun up, and we basically have all of our data funneling into Blobs with AI search enabled so that it can index all that information, and those chat agents can talk to them. The other thing that's really important is security is extremely important for us. So there's a lot of really amazing AI tools, but if you go look at their security, they're not SOC 1 certified, they're not SOC 2 certified, they're not ISO 2700, and for some things that's okay. For some things it's not okay. Some things that you have contractual requirements to meet. So having an environment where you're using a co-pilot talking to an approved data source in a SOC 3 cloud is very, very different than, and I love Claude, I use it heavily, but I don't have Claude connected to certain things. So you gotta think about the security aspect of it. And so when you're working with some of these more enterprise level searches, also, a lot of this stuff costs us like $20 a month. I mean, it's really cheap. Now, they'll stop subsidizing AI and that'll go up about 3 times, but that's another story for another day. But a lot of these tools we build are pretty minimal, and it's a lot about just getting the information connected that you guys have in your business to something you can talk to with natural language. And so almost every industry here can have some form of that and be really, really helpful. There's also stuff like MPC servers, a little more on the technical side, but it allows you to talk to all your data sources. So if you have an ERP, you use Bamboo HR, you can have MPC to talk to that. So when you're chatting with your Copilot, your Claude, whatever, it can talk to that information. The good thing is just make sure if you have a CRM on a 2007 server and it's really, really old, it's gonna be really, really hard to get that integrated. So get your stuff modernized, get it upgraded, get it moved on, and go from there. Some lessons that we've had internally, just some stuff we've developed. When we first started getting into AI several years ago, we had a lot of what we call like quarterly goals, which is a lot of just throwing paint at the wall. We're gonna try 57 things this quarter, and as soon as it starts failing, we're gonna pull the plug and move on to the thing that's working. So definitely don't be trying to try a lot of things, just pull the plug early. Don't get stuck in something that just isn't working. Start smaller than you think. Automate something that everybody doesn't want to do already. You're gonna get a lot of buy-in, And when you start to get wins, quick wins with those things, you'll get buy-in from more stuff that people maybe are a little hesitant to let go of. Because you're going to have that. We are human in our environments. Other thing is for important things that you're trying to do, don't try to automate all of it. Have a human in the loop. If you're automating sending out quotes, maybe have that quote Teams message you and ask you approve or deny before it sends it directly to the client. Think about putting humans in the loop to have checks and balances to make sure that you're okay with what's being sent out. Clean your data. If you have old SharePoint data, you have old data on a server, if you old whatever information, this is your time to go in, delete stuff, archive stuff, go from there. Because if you're training an AI agent on a process you developed 5 years ago, it's probably not going to do what you want it to do because it probably changed. So make sure that whatever data you're putting in, it's extremely valuable. Don't put in junk data. You're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. Pick boring, high volume wins. The perfect scenario is if you can have an easy solve, everyone hates to do, and it's going to take a lot of time. Those are the things you're going to look for first, right? And then also, maybe just pick a slice of it first. One step. Prove that that works. Sell it to your team. You know, a lot of times, a manager in IntegriCom, I could go to my team and say, you have to do this, but if I can sell this to them, just like I would sell it to a client, this idea, this whatever, and I get massive buy-in, it's just going to go faster. And you're going to have those people who are champions in your company. That's another thing to identify early is who the people who actually like doing this, get them involved. Those will be some of your biggest profitability makers in your company long term. That's what we believe. Pick one painful task, map it, go for it, and you guys got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so now we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A. If Greg and Jeff and Amy want to come back up here for a few moments with Calvin. We have a few questions that we see happen a lot that people have, so I'm going to kind of talk through those with them and then also open it up to any of you guys if you have any questions for all of them, in particular one of them. So, oh yeah. Do you want to sit there if you can? Sure. Don't want to trip you. Okay, so I did a little bit of research, asked a few people. These are some questions that came up a lot. So which industries do you guys feel like have the most opportunities with AI and automation right now?
You know, when AI came out, they thought it was going to automate a lot of certain roles, and a lot of the roles they thought it'd automate, it didn't. Repetitive, white-collar tasks, data entry, like if you have someone doing the same thing every day, and it's pretty procedurized, meaning you can write it out in a procedure, most of those tasks are going to be replaced or augmented, where one person who could do a certain output can now do 100 times that output. White collar in general is kind of the stuff we see the most augmenting. We have people in our company who can do 10 times the output that they could before. So if you can put it on a procedure, you can write it down, and it uses technology, uses Microsoft 365, those are the roles that you can typically automate the most.
Thank you. What is a reasonable budget for a small business just getting into AI? A reasonable monthly budget, do you think, is a good number?
Free doesn't cut it, unfortunately. The $20, basically you want to avoid going tokens. You don't want to pay for tokens. You want to do the bargain is still in the plans that every AI model has. The Claude $100 model is probably a good starting point. So if you use that, unless you're doing really, really heavy duty stuff, the $100 a month is probably a good investment. But you can start with 20 and see. But yeah, I mean, you can get an awful lot done for $100.
Just to add to that, I would just say $20 times your leadership team. Get everybody in there first, and then you can roll it out. If you're doing more development stuff, that changes it a lot. So if you're developing things, but the plans, like you just said, is 100% true is the deal.
Is there a trend in AI or automation that you feel like is kind of just starting or really flying under the radar that's going to be really big in this next year?
So I can talk about some ways that we are starting to use AI to have like a closed process throughout the full sales cycle. So everything from not just how are sellers going out and identifying and starting to do some outreach with their prospecting, which I talked about, but how are you following that through the entire cycle of the sale? And so there's some elements of management and coaching where AI is starting to become useful as it relates to coaching and developing salespeople. And so there's some products out in the marketplace. One of the ones that I particularly love is Fathom. And so it's an AI note taker. My particular Fathom is, it's got the Sandler methodology baked in. And so one of the use cases that we're using with our clients is to say, hey, take the recording, and you can start to ask it questions like, how did I do following the Sandler methodology? Give me a grade of 1 to 10 on how well I did establishing rapport. Where did I miss some opportunities to ask some questions or dig deeper in the pain? And the great thing about these Fathom recordings is the sales rep can just send these to their sales manager, and the sales manager can then maybe ask those questions. Instead of having to sit there and watch the entire hour meeting, it can just type in the questions. Hey, how did my rep do on this? How did they do on that? There's some other tools that we're using for coaching. One of them is called Udly. And again, having these AI tools where your rep is not out there practicing their skills on an actual prospect, because that's very expensive. They can use these AI tools to coach them on sales process. And so these are some ways that we're using in our industry with sales reps to be able to improve and get better.
Two things. One, design has always been a problem in AI until recently. So AI is, the design work that you got out of AI was lagging way behind development of software. The recent version of Claude 4.8, Opus 4.8, is amazing at design. So it's basically replaced, in our situations, replaced the need for expensive outsourcing of design. So I really encourage you to look at that. And basically the way that works is you open up Claude and you say, hey, here's my website, give me 3 mock-ups of it, and see what it does. It does an amazing job. You should try that if you haven't. So that's a big thing that's come along in the past 3 months that didn't exist 6 months ago. The other thing is just data in general, and I talked about surfacing data. Here's an example. When we have people that call into our company, today we can use AI to analyze. We transcribe all calls with AI. We actually can use AI to analyze the call and come up with what we call a sentiment score. And it actually tells us how we should talk to that customer. Do they want to talk brief? Do they like stories? Who are they giving their in our case, we sell health products. Who are they giving the health products to? The ability to use that data to enhance the customer experience is really, really a big thing. So take advantage of the data, and I think that's going to become a bigger and bigger deal going forward as well.
So Fathom is an amazing tool. If you're not using that, if you're doing Zoom calls, you should have the Fathom plugin for sure. So one of the things I think that we might see this year is some monetization of the AI search engine. So right now you don't see ads, right? So I do get emails inviting me to advertise, be part of a pilot program to advertise like on ChatGPT. So I think that's coming. So that could be an opportunity for companies to be advertising. That would be with the free plans, not with the paid plan. So I think that's something to keep an eye out for this year.
I think in general, a lot of companies are going to look to connect all their data into their AI. Like, you're going to see a massive amount of my data's here, 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 and here. How do I get it to all my Copilot, my Claude, so I can talk to all of it at once? And with that, I think is companies, as they onboard new employees, are going to hand them an AI agent that's basically going to be an onboarding agent. And so, for all those questions that your employee might ask but are too embarrassed to ask, or they just have little questions, asking that, and it's just referencing the employee handbook, it's referencing the HR manual, it's referencing, hey, yeah, this is over here, go look here. See a lot of help in onboarding of employees, I think.
I thought of one other thing, if I can just build on that. So speaking of the data, in sales, one of the biggest problems that I see is fluff in the pipeline. Probably a lot of you guys have similar issues where you try to pull a forecast report and you can't tell what's real and what's not, and you've got deals that are in there that are 90, 120 days old that have no movement on them, right? So we've got lots and lots of data, even as it relates to sales. And how can we use AI to start to measure that? Well, that's a symptom of a broken sales process, so we can start using AI to analyze those forecasts and see, okay, where are our reps missing questions in the sales process? Because they're all presenting too early. That's the issue. They're not fully qualifying the opportunities. But now we've got tools and resources. Octus IQ is one that's a great one that can start to analyze win ratios and probabilities based on the data that's in there and the questions that were missed. So that's another tool that is using AI to help you identify where you got some gaps and how accurate is your sales pipeline.
Another question I see on all the news headlines and just everywhere in general is, will AI replace my job? So sometimes it's hard to get buy-in from your team because understandably they're like, oh, well, I want my job. I would like to keep having a paycheck. So what do you guys recommend for encouraging buy-in from the staff who are just resistant or nervous that it will replace their job? What kind of things have you seen kind of work there?
Well, I talked a little bit about this earlier. Sales reps who tried to hide behind AI and they're not using it inappropriately, they're going to be the ones that get cut. Like if you're not willing to do the calls and do the hard work of prospecting and you're trying to use AI tools to replace that, well, we already talked about how that's not going to work. So there's bad use cases and good use cases for each of the tools, but if we try and shortcut the process of doing the calls and let AI dialers just do that with automated messages, yeah, those reps are going to get replaced.
AI is rapidly advancing, but you still need a human to implement it, right? So you're not really seeing the implementation go as fast as the AI is progressing. And I think that's actually good to some degree. My worry is AI gets implemented so quick that you have massive layoffs. If it can be done slower, you have opportunity to upscale those employees. So for example, if you do nothing with AI, but your competitor does, and all of a sudden they drop their prices by a third and you can't match that, you're gonna have to lay off that team. Whereas if you can go and talk to the person right now and say, hey, this role is probably gonna change over the next 5-10 years. Give them a long runway and be like, right now we have the opportunity to remove the stuff you hate doing in your job and to get you to work towards more of the stuff you probably like doing or upskill that employee. And we have a moment now where we can basically automate a ton of stuff, build in more margin in your business, and support training someone into a new role, upskilling them, those kind of things. That's how we go about it. Like I quite honestly talked about dispatch, but we are hiring dispatchers because we hire dispatchers for the human connection, for when you call us, you actually talk to somebody, they know your name. And so what we're doing is upskilling them where they know every client, they're doing nice touch points, they're really doing an amazing customer service, but we're letting the AI do a lot of the tactical, change this step from 1, 2, 3, 4 stuff. And so talking to the employee about, hey, here's your opportunity to upskill, to move up, and if you resist it for long enough, your competitor will do it and you're gonna have to fire that person. So I'd rather sit down with an employee, talk to them about their role, talk to them about where we wanna get them, and work them towards that. And part of that is helping quite transparently eliminate certain things they do with AI so that they can tackle new things, identify where they're going to go before you automate their rollout. If you tell them, hey, I want to automate your full role, but you didn't give them a path on where they're going to go, they're just going to assume they're going to get fired.
Yeah, this is something I think about a lot because I'm a dad of 4 children, and I want them to be employable. And I tend to be somewhat pessimistic on this because I think there's potential for a lot of things to go really, really wrong as a society with massive change really quickly. But without going down that dark hole, what I tell my kids is 2 things. First of all, communication is more important than ever, and that's sort of the opposite of how younger people are moving. Sometimes they're more engrossed in phones and communication, but communication is enormously important going forward, because remember, whether you're talking to people, managing people is not going to be replaced by AI. You're still going to have to talk to people, but even if you don't talk to people, you're talking to LLMs, right? Which is also exactly the same. Communicating to an LLM is very, very similar. So I would say to anybody that's worried about being replaced, focus on communication. Up those skills, your communication skill. And then the second thing, and this is something that we do in our company, we try to turn everybody into prompt builders. In other words, everybody in your company, the person that's good on the phones, there's no reason why that person can't learn to work on the CMS, the software that they use. They can improve it. Typically, the training for that is not very is not nearly what you would expect. As an example, my daughter just graduated with a marketing degree from University of. She graduated with a marketing degree, which I'm going to be honest is marketing degree in 2026 has very marginal value because of AI already. So I brought her into our company and turned her into not a vibe coder, I hate the term, but she's coding for us and doing a great job, learning communication and so on. So I think that might be the future as well. Teach your people, okay, the path forward may be actually becoming part of the building process rather than just doing the grunt work.
So I know there is a lot of doomerism about AI, so and it's possible that we have the AI apocalypse or something, but I think for certain industries, it could hit people hard. So, we used to spend a huge amount of money on copywriters, and we spend a huge amount of money on AI now. So that was something that was the first thing that we got rid of, was the copywriting, just because we could get really great quality a lot faster. So some things like that I think are in danger. But as we've heard, a lot of times the AI just makes us more productive. You can do just a lot more, a lot faster. And that's mostly what we're seeing in our business. Is I don't really see any resistance to it necessarily. We're embracing it because we're able to go faster and get better results. And so hopefully that's what happens. My son's also wants to be a voice actor. He just graduated from acting school, and that's a profession that could get replaced by AI. So it's hard to know, like your marketing degree and things like that. It's very different.
Good. So one last question, and then I'll open it up to the group if you guys have any questions for anybody. But 18, 24 months down the road, what are you guys seeing? Where do you think this is actually heading long term? What should we be expecting? Any predictions for the future? I know that is a very loaded question, but I'm giving you a shot to answer it anyways.
It's impossible to predict, so half of what I say will be most definitely wrong. But the focus is just to make sure you implement it and be learning and trying things so that you're on the front wave. So when the change happens, you're ready for it. I think that a lot of industries will have layoffs. I think there will be a lot of people who are now doing the work of 20, 30, 40, and that's going to mean job displacement. I hope it happens slow enough, because what I think will also happen is there has never been a time where you could start a business and have Claude run all your departments. So you're going to have, I think, a lot of these super, super niche businesses coming up that are specializing in this tiny little thing, and you're going to have like a 2-3 person shop building a software for this extremely specific niche, which would have cost millions of dollars before, and now cost them 10 grand to build this incredibly niche thing and sell it to that specifically a niche organization. So I think you have a lot of entrepreneurship, I think of a lot of very small employee count, very profitable businesses, and then just competition, just everything's gonna move faster, which it always is.
Yeah, generally, the LLMs are going to get really smart. As smart as they are now, Opus 4.8, already next week, I think Mythos is coming out from Claude, which is basically supposed to be many steps further. The big thing that I would say may affect every single person in this room is security. Security is an enormous issue going forward, protecting your business assets, because new AI tools are going to make it really easy to find vulnerabilities. Be very careful with that. That would be my biggest warning. As far as apocalypse or glory days, I don't know. I tend to lean pessimistic, but I don't know.
Sorry, I just want to add to what he was saying. Mythos, if you've ever Googled it, looked into it, it is extremely scary. Not to be pessimistic, but in our world, we deal with a lot of scary stuff, right? And so I have never had more meetings with the FBI and the Secret Service in a single year than I ever have this year. I was at a FBI talking to an event I was at, and we deal with infrastructure. So some of us in the company are part of InfraGuard, which is FBI, or kind of cross communication. We show them stuff they see, they give us heads of stuff and they see. And because of all this new software being written, Mythos will go and look at all these softwares, find vulnerabilities in seconds, write exploits, and just sell them to someone in a coffee shop who can just hack your organization really quick. So like the basics in IT, like patching, are like a patch is going to roll out and they're going to have 5 vulnerabilities by the time it's lunchtime. And so it's just like doing the basic things right, just keeping things modern, keeping things patched is going to ever be more important than it is now. These vulnerabilities, exploits, we're seeing hacking used to drop into a Microsoft environment and stay there for 6 months, a year, just to kind of figure out what's going on and like attack later. We're seeing that change to like hours. So like what they did in 6 months is now happening in 7 days, then it's happening in 3 hours. They're getting in, attacking, pulling data out way faster. Everything is speeding up on that side of the bit. And so from behind the scenes, it's really hard because we were having to get a lot of new tools and a lot of new teams, and like the minimum for security is going through the roof. So if you haven't really looked at that in a while, I would strongly look at that.
So I predict Skynet goes live. So that's be the end of humanity. So I think there's a few possibilities. People could start building local LLMs on their own local hardware is a possibility. But I think for the local business owner, 2026 and 2027 are going to be huge changes as we've already seen. Last year we really didn't see that much impact as far as online search. In 2026 it was just like hitting the gas pedal. ChatGPT and everything started dominating search. So I think you're going to see a lot more fragmentation in search and how people can find your business. And it's just going to be very important to be everywhere and make sure that the LLMs think that your business is worthy of being cited and recommended in the search results. So I think that's going to be just critical to all of our businesses this year and next year and beyond that. I have no idea.
So I've got clients that are on this end of the spectrum, they're early adopters, and I've got clients on this end of the spectrum that are like very excited to learn a new AI tool to help them write a proposal, right? So on the early adopter side of the spectrum, I've got a client that has learned to send agents out to take a list from a networking group that he's a member of, and he's like, hey, here's my ideal client profile, here's who I'm looking for, go find me the top 15 prospects that are members of this group, go out to the web, search their business, tell me how big they are, how many people work for them, whatever the criteria is, and then go send them a LinkedIn request. Then I want you to create a prospecting cadence. So we've got that end of the spectrum that some early adopters are doing today, and I think in 18 months we'll all be comfortable with that. Like that'll be table stakes. So I think from I guess, where are we going to be in 12 to 18 months? I think that there will probably be a lot more comfort with how to go out and use some of those tools for us to make us more efficient.
Thank you. Well, does anyone in the crowd have any questions for anybody? Yes, Candy. Yeah, let me repeat the question just so I have it in the microphone. So he was asking he's seeing companies that are finding it cheaper to hire new staff rather than implementing AI in certain instances, and he was wondering if anyone here has seen that.
In short, no. That's wishful thinking. AI is way, 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 way cheaper than employees for almost everything. That may change because I think right now a lot of AI companies are losing money and they're subsidizing a lot of the cost. So they're basically giving what you get for $200 a month out of Claude is many, many employees worth of work, to be very, very honest. And I know, I mean, there was a big article that came out this week about Microsoft saying we're going to stop paying for tokens and so on. There's no doubt that there can be a lot of waste with tokens. People can use them inefficiently and they can do whatever. But no, I mean, I think that, I mean, we'd all like to think, okay, yeah, this is all going to be overblown and tokens or AI is going to end up being more expensive. It's not going to be the case, I don't think. I would be shocked if that's the case. That's my opinion on it.
We've seen a bit of companies using some software, some vendor to replace a massive amount of work in their company, and they've basically let employees go, and the software is going to do it all now. And it's just a lot of fluff. Like, it does 3 out of 10 things really well, and then the other ones it kind of fails on. And so they're honestly hurting their business by kind of not really measuring the right metrics and seeing if things are improving and kind of just jumping into stuff before they fully realize the actual thing. And so I think that some of those companies' poor implementation of stuff and acting maybe too early on things has caused a lot of business loss. But I would agree, everything, I really not seeing that. I think it's, the cat's out of the bag and it's not going back in kind of thing for every industry that I work with, at least.
Yes. Yeah, so the question was around using AI for more strategic work and even having it help you influence changing your business model and kind of that thing. So, does anyone have?
So this is a philosophical question, I think, which comes down to the question, can you create with AI? So typically AI is always working on an existing database. In other words, it's working on a finite set of facts. It's a huge set of facts, a huge amount of data. So if I went to LLM and said, okay, come up with a new way to help me do business, AI is limited by the facts that it has, right? In other words, it can only tell me what it knows from what every other business does. Is it really creating anything new? That's why AI is more of an efficiency thing right now. It helps you give ideas from other people. But at present, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure there's smarter people than me in AI that may be able to prove this wrong, I don't see AI creating. So the answer to your question is no. It makes you better. It may bring ideas. It makes us better, more efficient workers. But I'm not so sure that it does what you're saying it does.
Sure.
So I'll mention, I don't want to talk too much, but yeah. We have changed models in the last year because we can now use technology to do a lot more. For example, last year we were working on a WooCommerce platform. We've been able to go up to, we've gone headless. I know I'm speaking technical jargon. We would not have been able to do that 5 years ago, but now that we're headless, we have amazing customization to change our business model. So yeah, that happens for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing is AI is commoditizing a lot of business to where everybody can do it to a really high volume, efficiency, et cetera. So it's forcing a lot of organizations, knowingly or unknowingly, to change models. I mean, even for us, we talk about how we were probably going to shift in certain ways. When I mentioned earlier about the solo entrepreneurs creating these like new industry, new things, I think yes, that will happen because the cost of something that would have never made sense to do before now is cheap because I have a $200 Claude subscription that's doing the work of 30 people, and I can offer such a niche service that everyone would like, but they'd never pay more than $3 for, that I can actually do now at a larger scale. And I think you see that with technology in general. We now have HVAC in all of our buildings, where that wouldn't have made sense at all. The technology wasn't there for that. So I think you're gonna have a ton of new industries spinning up. And to be honest, small teams doing like incredible, super niche work. And not only niche work, but they can create a core component and have AI modify that delivery to different niches. So you might have like some core thing they do and then tailor it with AI to like 300 extremely niche industries. So Exact examples I don't have because it's not what I'm looking for myself, but 100% could not, 100%.
I think it goes back to the question, just because AI can do something, should it? And so in my industry, of course, which is sales, I'll share an example. Last summer, I had an emergency AC replacement at a rental property that I had a guest staying in, and I called a company that had implemented AI so that they never missed a call, never missed an opportunity. Got so frustrated talking to the robot that I ended up going to another company where I was able to get a person on the phone. I think, at least in my industry, people still want to talk to people. And so there's an irony there that they implemented AI so that they never miss another sale, and then missed a sale because they implemented AI. So I know you're looking for, can it be disruptive? I think it can be used in the right context, but I don't have any examples off the top of my head right now of how it's being used in sales as a disruptor, because I think right now people still want to talk to people.
Very good question. Yes. Yeah. So the question was around hosting your own LLM model in your own cloud space.
I think it's coming, but that's all I know.
I think it's harder than it sounds. It's harder to get. If you host your own LLM, you have to fine tune it. Basically, you have to train it. And so you're putting effort into tech work that is not there. I mean, when you're considering what you can get for $200 a month, $100 a month, it's very hard to justify that cost right now. But I think eventually it'll be there. It's just, trust me, we've gone down this road a lot, explored, and it's not so much the LLM, it's the data, the form of the data behind it that creates the problems, getting that right, and it's not necessarily easy.
I think industry matters. So the type of data you're working with, if it has any kind of compliance on it, you're not going to see that really. You're going to see, if you're in healthcare and you have HIPAA data and you have contracts with clients saying you're not going to put it on a MacBook in your office that doesn't have all the security or the governance or the other thing. The other thing is uptime. So like if you have something running locally and you only have one internet connection in front of it and that goes down, then you lose all access to your stuff. So there's a reason why AWS, Azure, GCP has unbelievable uptime. And because they're subsidizing the cost right now, it generally doesn't make sense. I think though I think you'll see phones, computers, whatever, start having more AI, the type of chip that runs that very well built into them. And you'll see more like if you're using Claude, it will use the resources on your computer to do some of the compute versus sending it to the cloud, just from a cost perspective. You might see that coming down the line. And then for a privacy perspective on the personal side, there's a lot of rumors around Apple and how they're adjusting hardware to run stuff locally, to like if all your personal Google searches and stuff are not going, because this data, every time you interact with the data, especially a free one, you are the product that is stealing your information. And so I think you'll see some privacy industries do it different ways because of that. So hopefully that's okay answer.
Any other questions? Yes. So the question was around how much time is spent preventing security concerns with all the AI tools.
My whole job. So yeah, a lot. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with clients to ask them to not please use free AI. I mean, how many HIPAA breaches are going on by the second because someone's pasting something into the free version of Copilot so yeah, we block things for companies. We ask every one of our clients to have an AI policy that everyone signs. So there's the compliance aspect of it. As far as the actual security of it, you got to realize that Claude, some of these other they're fast-growing businesses, and security and compliance slows them down. So typically you're going to see security holes in general. That being said, AI is helping us with that. So Mythos can find vulnerabilities extremely fast. We use those things to find our vulnerabilities and patch them fast. Stuff like that, right? Other thing is I typically gear more compliant industries more to the industry players. So like Copilot. Copilot uses Claude. Copilot uses OpenAI. It uses all the same models. they're typically 1 or 2 models behind. And for a lot of companies who care about security, that's actually a good trade because they're building in more of the security. So if you have a BAA signed for HIPAA with Microsoft already, you can dump a lot of data into Copilot pretty freely because it follows the same regulatory requirements that you already have with Microsoft. If you're in basically there's a DoD government versions of Microsoft 365, those are more secure ways of doing it. Whereas if you just if your employee bought their own Claude subscription and they're dumping your data into that Claude subscription and they leave the company, they have all of your data. And that would be a breach. And if you have contracts with clients that you're gonna keep their data secure, you gotta really think about this. So yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah, so I hate to sound so fatalist, but yeah, you can't paste, you can't. It's not just Claude, it's all the steps in between. For example, if you're using Claude plugins, there was a huge hack on a Claude plugin recently. It was a major plugin that created huge exposure. So this stuff happens, and I will be honest, I mean, in 27 years, we've had some security breaches, and we had a breach a couple of weeks ago. It was a plugin that we bought that we trusted, and they had a breach, and basically there was a script that got loaded into a table. Fortunately, Claude helped us find it. So Claude can be used for good or bad. All these tools can, but you got to be extremely, extremely careful about anything you do because it's not just Claude. It's a lot of other steps in between. More careful than ever.
Yes. So I will in 5 years. So planning around long-term AI availability.
I just want to say real quickly, I think the biggest thing that's going to constrict AI in the next few years is going to be power generation. Those things need an incredible amount of power, and you're talking about building 30 gigawatts or something like that. That's like 30 nuclear power plants. It's going to take a long time to do that. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing to constrict it, unless they get a lot more efficient with the way they do the compute, which they might.
Yeah, I think that for sure Claude subscription is going to go up. So in other words, we probably are at a heyday in terms of how much you can build, how cheap. Costs are going to have to go up eventually. So yeah, I don't think you're going to see the tools go away, but I think they're just going to get more expensive. That's how I would see it. I think there's obviously there's going to be a lot of pressure to slow down AI, but I don't know that we can slow down because it's such a security risk for the country and so on. I don't see that happening, but I do think costs will go up.
Yeah, I agree. Cost is going to go up. Regulation could come. I doubt it will to some degree because of the threat of other countries. And so a lot of people are not going to, like copyright right now. I mean, there is a massive amount of copyright infringement that all these companies are doing, and they're not really getting punished for it. And I think it's because if you can develop a mythos and find vulnerabilities in China or find vulnerabilities in a different country, I don't see it being regulated probably as much as we might want or hope for or even consider. It's a bit of a who has the biggest nuke kind of thing, to be honest, with how this is being built. And so I don't know, but I doubt it will be regulated. Also for the power thing, if we look at like chip manufacturing and chip efficiency, I do think that efficiency will happen quite a bit. We're gonna see the power consumption go down. I just don't know if the demand's gonna continue to go up and power is still gonna be the limiting factor.
Any other questions before we wrap up? No? All right. Well, thank you guys. Alex from Falcon View Group was supposed to attend as well. He has an AI analyst business, but his son was super sick last night, and he was up all night and had him take him to the doctor first thing. So he's like, I don't think I'm going to make it. And I was like, oh, man, but I understand. So hopefully we'll get to see him in the future. But yeah, for those who I haven't met, my name is Anya Thane. I am with IntegriCom, and I really appreciate all you guys attending. It looks like lunch has been served, and the baseball game will get started shortly. So thank you all very much.